Well, Steve Kerr had some interesting comments on the recent edition of the Draymond Green show, and we're going to play that soundbite and then obviously discuss it because it was interesting. There's no doubt about that. All that and next with Kylen Mills. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms, including Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Kylen Mills. Super easy. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Kylen, great to see you. And we're about to play a soundbite. Before we get into that, how are you? And anything you want to say to the audience to preclude what we're going to play?
Oh boy. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well. Also, I am kind of excited for this episode just because there is plenty of meat to bite into in regards to Steve Kerr's comments on Draymond Green's podcast. I'll say I was surprised by what you're about to hear. And I mean, I think we just got to dive right into it because it's very, very interesting, a little bit surprising and quite telling about some of the dynamics and what really went on within the Warriors organization this season. So let's get at it, dude. Like,
Let's do it. And I know I need a haircut, by the way. That's going to happen at some point. All right, here is, this is the clip. And again, this was Steve Kerr on Draymond Green's podcast, The Draymond Green Show, and the conversation turned to what the Miami Heat are doing in the NBA Finals that's translating into success, resulting in a 1-1 split. The Heat now have home court advantage, and Kylen, if we have time in this show, we'll talk about that series as well. But here is Steve Kerr making these comments that seems a lot like it's insinuating it's about his own team.
The huge three in the fourth quarter tonight, and it's like, none of those guys on Miami are sitting there saying, well, I didn't play, or man, they put in so-and-so. Like, they're just all about winning. And you know this from our groups that we've had. When you have that championship mentality, every guy's bought in, every guy's just trying to win. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. You don't go into the locker room, saying, well, I should have played more. You just want to win. And that's the beauty of finding that magic when you have a championship team, is that everybody's bought in, and it makes the decisions for the coach really simple. You just go with your gut and go with whoever's playing well.
There you go. And that's what Steve Kerr said. Kylen, your immediate reaction to those comments?
I have a lot of thoughts about these comments, Cyrus.
I'm sure you do.
First, yeah. First, there are multiple things that can be true at the same time. I think Steve Kerr is right, and it is accurate what he said, that there has to be total and complete buy-in on championship teams. There cannot be any I in team. It's the long overdone saying, but it's true. When you have individuals who are more focused on themselves and their playing time over the needs of the team, it is going to spread like a cancer. It only takes one player who is toxic to affect the entire group and to distract everyone from the mission at hand, which is everyone doing whatever is necessary for the group to win a championship. I've been a part of teams. I've seen it happen. So I do think Steve Kerr is right. I think that those comments do seem to be subliminally. I do think the comments seem to be underlying directed at the young players in the Golden State Warriors team. Now, what I do want to say, the names that have come up regarding Steve Kerr's comments are Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga. That's what I'm overwhelmingly seeing in regards to the Twitter reactions, the social media reactions about Steve Kerr's comments about how everyone has to be bought in. They can't be complaining or pouting about playing time, which, like I said, everything that he pointed out is true. But you look at those two, I want to start with Jordan Poole. Why wouldn't Jordan Poole be bought in this season? Why would he maybe, have some sort of different feelings? The season started out with Jordan Poole being punched in the face by a teammate who's supposed to be a veteran leader on the team, one of his mentors, and the organization tried to sweep it under the rug. In my opinion, they tried to gloss over it, minimize the damage. And, where did that leave Jordan Poole in that whole situation? He never really has come out and said how he truly felt about it. Draymond Green was back at ring night ceremony, took a couple days away from the team, and everyone moved on. And as if nothing had happened, it just didn't seem like there was any major retribution. Now, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I was someone who said that I thought Draymond Green should be suspended a game. I think across other sports, if there is a video that gets out where there is a punch like that. Now, I know that there are fights that happen, arguments, whatever else at practices for professional sports. Sports are competitive. The way the punch happened, the way he just walked over and almost sucker punched Jordan Poole, the amount of force he put behind it, just like nothing about that situation was normal to me. And there had been tension between those two before a little bit. For example, during the championship run, they, had some, little moments of jarring with each other. They both kind of talked about, yeah, we're like brothers. We go back and forth. But to me, nothing about that punch in the preseason was normal. So, I just think for Jordan Poole to feel, a part of the team, to be totally bought in terms of his role and making sacrifices for the team, to me, the tone was set with the Draymond Green punch and the way the Warriors handled it. So I think right from the get-go this season, if you want to look at the culture being impacted, that was the first wrong turn. Now, in terms of Jonathan Kuminga, I do think there's a little bit of immaturity, maybe a little bit of head hanging when he doesn't play. Fair enough. I think he could handle the situation better. You also have young competitors who want to be a part of it. They want to compete, so I understand it in that regard. But maybe a little bit more maturity could come from Jonathan Kuminga, not the same situation as Jordan Poole. I also think at the same time, it can be true that head coach Steve Kerr should have and could have used Kuminga in a better way. Even in the postseason, I thought Jonathan Kuminga should have gotten another chance. I do think that Steve Kerr should have given the younger players a longer leash throughout the regular season as well. But you look at Moses Moody. Moses Moody did everything right, and Steve Kerr still didn't play him or DNP'd him throughout the season. He did finally get his moment in the postseason, but, I don't know that having total buy-in and the right attitude would have necessarily made a difference, because to me, it was clear Steve Kerr didn't trust the young players throughout this regular season. It's apparent that something and more than maybe a lot of us realized was going on behind closed doors with this team. To me, the Bob Myers stepping away, a guy who's at the height of his career, led this team and organization to so many championships, so close to all the players, for him to step back from basketball, for Steve Kerr to be going out on a podcast and saying these kinds of things, that shocks me a little bit. Steve Kerr, I've watched go up on the podium at Warriors press events and say, well, we want to make sure we're keeping things in-house. And that's something that specifically was brought up in regards to the Jordan Poole, Draymond Green punch, was that we want to keep things in-house. So I think it's very interesting that these comments on Draymond Green's podcast appear to be very much out of the house, and they appear to be very much pointing to certain individuals or implying certain individuals on the Warriors team. So for him to kind of contradict the own things that, the statements he's made, I think that's very telling that more has gone on in terms of discontent amongst this organization beneath the surface, maybe than the fans realized. And to me, there were so many factors as to why this season didn't go as planned for the Golden State Warriors, why there was so much inconsistency and struggles. And certainly there were a lot of things out of their control. But to me, it's also apparent that there was more going on underneath the surface in terms of the relationships, whatever reason, personalities didn't gel. There was, just not the same culture that there was one season prior. That's what this tells me.
I can't disagree with a single thing you said. And when we come back, I'll share my thoughts on it. After we first give some love to one of our sponsors, and that's Gametime. It was our title sponsor today. Do they have an overlay? No, they do, but I have not uploaded it. That is my bad. I'm sorry. Well, whatever. Gametime is incredible if you want tickets to events. You don't have to wait months to do it in advance. They have tickets last minute. And one of the best parts of Gametime is the fact that they offer a low price guarantee. So let's say you buy tickets from Gametime, and then you happen to see those same two tickets. Hypothetically, you bought two tickets on another app, from another dealer, same row, same section, for less. You can present that to Gametime, and they will refund the difference. That is called a low price guarantee. And that's phenomenal. That's all you can ask for in this world when it comes to being a consumer and buying things. So go check out Gametime, download the Gametime app. Now in my defense, Locked On, for some reason, none of the links to the copy are working. So I'm going entirely off my brain and off verbatim for this, but go check it, download the Gametime app. And if I remember correctly, if you use the promo code Locked On NBA, you can get $20 off your first purchase. So go check that out, download it, and enjoy whatever event you're going to.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. For the everydayers, a great week of shows. Besides my partner in crime here, Kylen Mills, Kristen Peak, someone whose opinion when it comes to the draft I hold higher than anyone else. She is brilliant when it comes to personnel. I've said time and time and again that if I ever was a GM, my first hire as an assistant GM would be Kristen Peak. She's brilliant. She nails it every time when it comes to mock drafts, and she's going to come on the show Wednesday to talk about her thoughts on Kuminga, Moody, all the Warriors youngsters, and what the Warriors might do with the upcoming pick. And then Howard Beck, the legendary sports journalist, joins us on Thursday's show. So that's what's coming up. And then Kylen will wrap out the week. We haven't finalized what day you're coming on yet, but regardless, follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, at Kylen Mills. So you brought up a few things with that soundbite. The one thing that that really just kind of took me back is that Kerr said this so publicly. And I know you touched that already, but I just have to like second that, because it's insane. I mean, this is someone who has always modeled himself for being the grown up in the room, being the professional. I totally agree with you that they bungled the handling of the Jordan Poole punch. It was just ugly in every regard. The Warriors did not handle that situation in a clean manner. They were in an incredibly tough situation. I'll give them that, in the sense that this incident happened right before ring night, and it was just in a tough spot. Now, granted, you could have maybe suspended Draymond for the second game. There could have been solutions for that, but it just wasn't handled well. There's no debating that. And for Kerr to go publicly, and I mean, because there's no, I don't think there's any disputing this, that him saying these words, and he's a media savant. I give him full credit for the way he handles the media. He was a media professional for a large number of years. Yeah. He fully is aware and cognizant of the fact that every word that comes out of his mouth could be aggregated, could be used and read into. So for him to come out and say this publicly was astounding to me. And what it makes me think is that maybe Jordan Poole's on his way out. I don't understand how he could come out and be this brazen in these kind of comments if the future of Jordan Poole was not with the Golden State Warriors, whether they're going to, move on from him altogether and cut salary by trading him for nothing, whether they get pieces back for him. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. This is just me reading into what's going on here, but it's still, I'm just really mind blown that Kerr just literally was just this open in criticizing what is most likely Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga and the way they handled their roles in the postseason. Jordan Poole, I didn't think Kerr handled Poole wrong at all. On a side note, he was still giving him minutes. Poole was playing awful in the postseason. There is virtually no measurable that you could look at that goes, oh, well, at least he did this okay. Like, he had a bad postseason, plain and simple. Like, I don't think he should have been playing even by the end of it, but Kerr was still giving him minutes. I'm totally with you in the Kuminga sense, where for him to not play at all was just really weird. The way he handled Kuminga and Moody in general was just, I didn't think was effective, and the results showed, but the going public thing is really crazy. I mean, Kerr had to be aware that people like us would be talking about this. Now, I think this highlights just how important Bob Myers leaving is as well, because Bob Myers was normally a massive buffer, someone who could be an intermediary, someone who could smooth over these kinds of relationships. And the fact they don't have him there now to keep everyone copacetic is concerning. That's another thing that sticks out to me, in terms of how they're going to handle this. But the one thing that bothers me, though, about the comments is, because it's basically like a know your role type speech is what he was saying, right? Like know your role on a championship team, understand that this is a team, and, sometimes you might not have to, there might not be room for you in terms of minutes in order for you to contribute. But if that's going to be your ethos, then you can't maintain blind loyalty to veterans who are not playing well either, right? So like if your ultimate mentality is, next man up, understand your role in this team to win a title, Klay Thompson should not have been playing the minutes he should have been playing. Klay Thompson had an awful postseason. So are you going to bench him? Are you going to move him to the bench and make him maybe like a sixth man next year? Because for the team, that would be the best move for a declining veteran who's no longer at the peak of his powers. He's probably not going to do that. So now you're looking at Kerr's words and thinking hypocrisy, which to me is an ultimate sin when it comes to logical fallacies. I don't like that at all. It's like if you're gonna present this case that the best players have to play depending on the circumstances, that has to include your veterans. Now, Stephen Curry has bought into that. He came off the bench most of round one last year. Draymond Green has bought into that. He's come off the bench at times and was even benched at the end of one of the NBA Finals games. We've never seen Klay in that role. But Klay is at a point now where unless like this offseason he completely, reinvigorates his game, he's going to have to look at a smaller role. Is Kerr willing to do that? I don't know. And then you look at the Miami Heat, and because he used that as an example of basically what the Warriors should have done. And the players who are sometimes playing, sometimes not playing, these aren't like lottery picks. These aren't young, up and coming superstar players, right? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think you can treat a player like Jonathan Kuminga, and to me, even Moses Moody, but he still did it anyways. But I just don't think players like them you can treat in a way where, okay, this round, we're just not going to need you. Stand by, stay ready. These are two players who, until they came to the Warriors, were looked at as the focal point of their offenses, right? I mean, Moses Moody was the star at Arkansas. Jonathan Kuminga was a high school superstar. He was a star of his G League team. And these aren't players that you can easily adapt into being like bench players who might only play 5-10 minutes one night, might not play at all. These are players who need to play, right? I mean, like, you're not going to treat, for example, going back to the Miami Heat, like Bam Adebayo is not going to be treated like a role player. He's going to play. Jimmy Butler is not going to be treated like a role player. He's going to play. JaMychal Green is a name that came up because what Kerr said is being synonymous with what what Stephen Curry said in his speech in the first round of the playoffs this recent year, where Steph supposedly had this impassioned speech that was sort of calling out Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga. But you can't call out. There are just certain players you can't call out, is what I'm trying to say. Like, some players have to play. They do have those egos, and it's up to the coach to manage those egos and understand that you have to handle each individual appropriately. And if this is the way you were going to treat them, if this was the plan, why did you draft them in the first place? Like, these are two guys that have to play. Now, granted, if they were crappy, if they were detrimental to your team's success, I get it. Bench them. They're not doing well. Jonathan Kuminga never once showed that all season. Jonathan Kuminga was playing pivotal minutes down the stretch when Andrew Wiggins was out mourning his father or dealing with his father's illness, and Kuminga rose to the challenge. And he was rewarded for that with a benching, with DNPs, with 2-3 minutes of observation before deciding that's enough, even though that's just a minuscule sample size to judge a player. So you have to read the room. And for Steve Kerr to think that players like Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, and Moody handled it incredibly well. Apparently, Jonathan Kuminga, by Kerr standards and Stephen Curry standards, did not. But I just don't think Kerr handled it appropriately. And for him to have this false equivalency of Kuminga, Moody, and Jordan Poole being in the same position as like a Gabe Vincent, as a Caleb Martin, they're not the same. They're nowhere near the same. That you're comparing undrafted players who are patient, who are sometimes not playing or playing very specific roles, with lottery picks who have been heralded most of their lives, who have been treated like superstars most of their lives. And look, no one forced you to draft them. No one put a gun to your head and said, draft Jonathan Kuminga. You could have taken a safer route and gone with Franz Wagner, right? You could have taken a different direction here. You made these picks. You got to live with it. And I just think it's incredibly unfair to make this false equivalency between what the Heat are going through and how Spo is coaching that team versus how Kerr expected the players on this roster this year to handle their roles. That's my take on it. But ultimately, I think it's crazy that Kerr came out publicly, and that kind of tells me that maybe Jordan Poole is on his way out. I don't know. What do you think to everything I said, Kylen?
I have many thoughts. Do we need to do our
Please.
next ad break? Or
We have no
can
more
I
ad break,
get
so
into
go
it?
for it. We're
Okay,
free the rest of the way.
perfect. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to start rambling and then you're like, ooh, wait.
No, go for it. I'm done.
So in some regards, I agree with you that every player needs to be handled differently. And no, a Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga aren't in the same boat as some of the Miami Heat players you mentioned. And they're not in the same boat as anyone else but themselves, because each player does need to be managed on an individual basis by the coach, Steve Kerr. The thing is, Steve Kerr has done that with certain individuals. Look at how he handles Draymond Green. There are some coaches that would get in Draymond Green's face, who would scream at him. And it just depends. Every coach is different as well. But, there's some coaches who would get angry in regards to the constant ejections and mouth running and, I don't know, maybe punching a teammate. But Steve Kerr also recognizes the way to deal with Draymond Green and the best way to handle, the fieriness that he brings to the floor that they love on one hand, but can be a double-edged sword on the other. To me, it just was clear that he didn't trust the young players this season. I don't think it mattered who they were. I don't think it mattered if you were Moses Moody, who had a great attitude and worked super hard. I don't think it mattered if you were Jonathan Kuminga, who maybe hung your head a little bit and showed a little bit how upset you were when you were on the bench because you want to be out there playing and you're super competitive. To me, that didn't matter. Steve Kerr didn't trust the young guys. Like, that's what I took away from this season, based on the fact that Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome were getting 20 plus minutes a night, while some of the young players that were drafted, lottery picks, look at the James Wiseman situation. To me, it was very clear that across the board, Steve Kerr didn't trust the young players. Also, though, one thing I do want to mention is that you mentioned that every player needs to be treated differently. Some just need to play and whatever else. I do think there is some of that has to be earned. So like, for example, and I'm saying, I do think he treats Draymond Green differently, or some of the Warriors veterans differently. Like, they've earned that level of trust. So I get that. And the young players also do need to come in, earn the trust, earn the playing time. But Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody were a part of a championship team one season ago. That's what is so hard for me to wrap my mind around, is that they contributed in the championship run, and then to come back the next season and to DMP them in the middle of February on a team that's barely over 500 so that two-way players can rack up 25 minutes, it makes no sense to me. James Wiseman, who you coveted and the organization has said for so long they believe in, they just want to get him back on track after dealing with so many injuries, an unfortunate situation, he never got a chance. He never got a chance with the Warriors organization, which is a disappointing thing about the whole situation to me. Maybe James Wiseman will go on to be a huge talent or have a long career in the NBA. We would never know, because I don't think he ever got a fair shot with the Warriors, because I think across the board, Steve Kerr didn't want to play the young players. To me, that was it. One other thing I wanted to say just about Steve Kerr's comments. I think it's brazen for him to come out and say something like this in a public forum. Steve Kerr is very media savvy, as you mentioned, and he knows that this is going to be talked about. We heard that Steph Curry gave an impassioned speech during the playoff run that was directed towards Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga. To me, like, the message has already been heard loud and clear. I just don't really know what the positive would be to come from this. And from a coach who has talked about wanting to keep things in-house so much, like with the Jordan Poole, Draymond Green punch situation, it just seems very contradictory to me. So that's what makes it so surprising. Now, in terms of one thing I do want to say about a lot of finger pointing at Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga being, the toxic cancers on this team, to me, you can't point the finger at just those two alone. Well, I do agree Jonathan Kuminga could have handled not playing better. Jordan Poole could have handled not playing better. This season started out on the foot of Jordan Poole being punched by Draymond Green and it being swept under the rug by the organization. I think there was something just about the personalities on this team that didn't quite work the way that the Warriors worked one season ago. People laugh when I bring up the fact that, the JTAs, the Damian Lees, the Nemanja Bjelica's left last season. And I post this and people are saying, oh, well, really? You guys lost in the playoffs this year because you didn't have Nemanja Bjelica? Ha, ha, ha. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there were
that's ignorant, though. Those players did help way more than those people are giving them credit for. I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but
no. I totally in agreement. My other thought, Joe, just is that you can't underestimate how important the culture piece is. You can't underestimate how important it is that the players mesh. They have chemistry. Last year, it just clicked right away. This year, from the moment the season started, it felt like something was off. And then you find out about the punch. Drama ensues. There's a leak within the organization. Someone sends the video to TMZ, and it, to me, was just a domino effect from there. You've got Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole. Then he's back at ring night. Jordan Poole never really addressed it. Steve Kerr's more worried about trying to find out who leaked the video. At least it appeared in that initial press conference. Like, to me, it was just all downhill from there. I'm sorry, but people hate when you keep bringing up the punch, but to me, it started there. In terms of the Warriors having something off with the culture this season. And to me, Bob Myers leaving tells that same story. A general manager who's so close and beloved by these players, who's in the prime of his career, still at the age where he has lots of years left to give, theoretically, is walking away. And to me, that makes me scratch my head a little bit. Yes, time with family is important, but there were some dynamics that I know you and I have talked about between Bob Myers and Joe Lacob at that last press conference that make you go, And that's where I'm at. What was going on under the surface with the Warriors? You've got Bob Myers leaving. To me, there were little signs here and there of some discontent. Gary Payton II came back on the team and mentioned, the team has a little bit of a different feel this year. Yeah, it had a different feel. Was it a positive feel? That's a question that I ask. And I think it just goes well beyond Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga. So that's my point. Could they have both been more mature in how they handled not playing? Absolutely. Do I think Kerr's right in his comments, just that you have to have total buy-in to be championships? You can't have players worried about their own individual minutes or accolades? Absolutely, he's right. Is that the forum to talk about that on right now? I think it's interesting that he chose to do that. And I think he's right in some regard. But to me, the problems were just much bigger with the Warriors. And it started day one. Something was off. It did not feel like it felt last year when they did chase a championship and there was total buy-in. Everyone clicked. The chemistry was on the floor. The chemistry was in the locker room. It just wasn't that way this season for whatever reason. Yeah,
I'm totally with you. I highlighted some chats that I want to address. I'll just go in order chronologically, starting with Crystal Sturdivant saying she doesn't think it's just about the young guys. JaMychal Green was complaining, and that's true. Now, granted, JaMychal Green changed his tone after that Stephen Curry speech. It worked. It resonated to him. I don't know if it resonated with Jordan Poole and Kuminga, but you're right. It wasn't just the young people. And we saw that one argument in the one game that JaMychal Green played significant minutes in the Kings series, where he got pulled out and started getting into an argument with Kenny Atkinson. And look, the frustration was there. So I totally agree with you, Crystal. I wholeheartedly see what you're saying.
And I agree. That's why I don't think you can necessarily just point the finger. Oh, Poole and Kuminga were the problems this season. Ship them out. Now, I actually do have another hot take before we bring up the next commenter.
Okay. The next one, Mark Graves writes, why didn't Jordan Poole ask for a trade when the punch happened? Did he want to run it back and defend the title? Great question. He was also at that point negotiating his contract extension, which does, again, make me wonder when it comes to that leak, if he had something to do with that, just because the financial motive was there, because he got that contract quick. Now, who knows, but it's interesting, I'll say there. But he also, look, that punch also should have, and the fact that Jordan Poole didn't ask for a trade should have shown you that punch maybe wasn't as personal as some people think, right? I mean, I do want to say, well, I can't reveal what was going on with Draymond Green's life. He had a very serious personal issue that he learned about just that day, and it's not an excuse for him to take it out on Jordan Poole. And look, Jordan Poole has gone under the skin of Stephen Curry. Again, Steph got ejected for the mouthpiece chuck because of a Jordan Poole shot. We've seen people get frustrated because of Jordan Poole, but no defense there. But yeah, I don't know why he didn't ask for a trade. You're right. That it probably shows that he wanted to stay.
Or make money. Or he wanted to make money because he knew the Warriors were going to give him a bag. Like, I think that is a huge factor. And, you brought up the point that the Draymond Green punch, you could argue that it helped put more dollars in Jordan Poole's pocket in terms of the Warriors having to offer more to get him to stay in light of that situation developing. Or at least he certainly could have used that to his advantage. You would think in negotiations in terms of, what they would have to give him to stay.
I agree. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, okay. So here's my one thing I want to say, though, about Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga. I think at this point, Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga should go. I think it's the best thing for them, and I think it's the best thing for the organization. That's my hot take for the day, and I have a couple of reasons why. Will Jordan Poole ever really be able to reset with the Golden State Warriors organization? After the punch happened, it never really was clear, how that was resolved between him and Draymond. Even beat reporters who are in the locker room and in close, communication with them every day. Our friend Connor Letourneau, mentioned they were never close after that point, that there wasn't, even if there wasn't tension, Jordan Poole and Draymond Green's relationship changed. And now you've got Steve Kerr coming out and making these comments. The way the postseason went with Jordan Poole, as people pointed out, he probably didn't handle not playing in the best way possible. I feel like the best thing for him would be to get a reset. I think the best thing for the organization would be to get a reset. And we're talking about how the Warriors need to trade a piece or pieces. There are two pieces that are possibly movable that would actually potentially help the locker room. I just am wondering, with the Jordan Poole situation, can the damage really be repaired at this point? Is it better to have the slate wiped clean for both parties? And the same thing with Jonathan Kuminga, his comments to the Chronicle. There were clear conversations that happened amongst the team in regards to how he handled the situation. Now you've got Steve Kerr coming out after the fact. Jonathan Kuminga obviously was very unhappy with the way that he was used during the postseason. Is it just better at this point? I think that Jonathan Kuminga is a massive, massive talent. I don't want to see him go, but I'm saying, is it going to be best for him at this point that he moves on to another organization? Can we guarantee that next season everything's going to be fixed and that Steve Kerr is going to play Jonathan Kuminga in the way that is going to make him happy and that he's going to really be able to grow and develop in the best way possible? Those are the questions that I have. I mean, what do you think? Like I said, I feel like it is a little bit hot takey to say, hey, they both need to leave. But like I said, also for them, is that going to be a better situation?
I think with Poole, I'm totally with you. I think it's time to move on. That's my feeling on it, just an opinion, but I'm with you. I agree with you. Kuminga, I think it depends entirely on how Kerr's going to use him. If Kerr's going to continue the way he's treated him, where some games you'll see significant minutes, some games you don't see him at all, trade him. There's no, he's too valuable of an asset to treat like that. And if you're going to still be chasing championships, bring in players who you're actually going to play. So I'm totally with you. on that. I just want to
that's where I'm coming from. Is like, if Steve Kerr's still not going to play him, like if we're going to end up in the same boat talking about the same thing next year, then like, what's the point? I think I totally agree. Great talent, but like, if we're going to be in the same boat a year from now, it's doing everyone a disservice.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And just a few more real quick, because I know we're up against the clock here. Rico Suave writes, Kerr needs veterans, not young guys. Yeah, I agree. If Kerr's going to stay the coach, he needs guys who can actually play, right? Bruce Morrow writes, I don't know where you're going. Cy, Kuminga, and Moody can't be called out. I don't support calling them out publicly, right? I mean, that's where I think the line is drawn. No, not publicly. I think that's an issue. And part of the problem is, where's the accountability on Kerr's part? Like I haven't heard him once come out and, I mean, I guess during the regular season he sometimes would say it's on me and stuff, but where's the accountability for not playing your two lottery picks all season, yet playing those two-way players, which did not result in success? Yet he doubled down in an interview and said he doesn't regret that decision. Where is the accountability there? Where's the accountability for whatever went wrong with this team defensively? Offensively in the postseason toward the end there. Where's the accountability on the coach? I mean, he's the leader of this team. Does he not deserve some blame here? Andre, who in the chat has really been against Poole and Kuminga, writes, Kuminga's agent demanding his client plays more minutes and have a role next year. Who is this guy? Kuminga was someone who was drafted at one point in that draft, one of the deepest drafts in NBA history. He was projected to go number 1. Okay, I know this might sound hyperbolic, but it is representative of reality. Let's say Scoot Henderson, even Wembanyama, let's say they get drafted and they get treated the exact same way Kuminga gets treated. Do you think those two guys are just going to sit there and go, this is fine, I'm okay with this? Absolutely not. And whether or not you agree that Kuminga is that level of talent, that is what Kuminga believes. And the Warriors knew that going in. And the other part of it is, I've never seen Kuminga do a single thing to earn a lack of minutes, if that makes sense. Like people have come out and criticized, his brief outings in the playoffs this last year, and said that he didn't have energy or whatever. But in the games he played where he actually had minutes, they were successful. His shooting was fine. They won most of those games. I just don't understand what's going on there. Kerr needs to have some accountability. There needs to be some blame directed towards the head coach who's supposed to be leading this whole thing. So that's my thoughts on that. And Ray Lang adds to this as well. Why are the Warriors so sloppy? Like, look at the Miami Heat. They're playing disciplined basketball. They have a series tied right now. Where was that with the Golden State Warriors? Again, where is the accountability for Steve Kerr? Do you agree with that, Kylen, or no? I don't know your thoughts on that as we wrap it up.
I think everyone has to take accountability for how the season went. I think Steve Kerr absolutely has a part of the blame. I don't like the way that he used the young players. I think that of the coaching seasons he's had, this was among his worst.
Yeah.
In terms of the job he did. Never go full Jeff 2.0 commented, we are literally the oldest team in the league. This is going to happen again next season. They're going to be gassed by the time the playoffs start. To that point, this roster construction was also a big part of the issue. We haven't touched on it this episode, but you had a bizarre mix of a bunch of players who were old and a bunch of players who were brand new.
Yeah.
There has to be a level of balance.
Yeah.
6 players at one point this season who were like 18 to 22. With the 2 rookies, Moody, Kuminga, Wiseman, and then Jordan Poole, who was 22 turning 23. Like, that is a lot of immaturity to pair up with some of the best veterans in the game who are trying to win a back-to-back championship. Like, to me, last year's roster construction, even just with Kuminga and Moody, and then throw in James Wiseman, who was hurt, like, that still was better. And then also this season, you had that empty roster spot. They end up signing Anthony Lamb just to not play in the postseason. And Andre Iguodala was a wasted spot. So to me, it just, the roster construction this season was a big problem. And the disconnect between the vets and the young guys was a problem.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Crystal, I just have to address this real fast. Crystal writes, it's the role Kuminga played when Wiggins and Gary Payne II came back. They jumped him in the rotation. My point is, Kuminga does not see himself as a role player, and he has the talent to not be a role player. So something needs to get resolved here. I mean, and it's sad that the Warriors had to sacrifice one of Stephen Curry's prime years to go through all this, but it's crazy. Anyways, all right, Kylen, another great show, I think. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Great show.
And yeah, we'll be back soon. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Lots
Bye-bye.
to talk about.
Oh, wait, before Kylen, you got to get on me because we have these this end of show thing I got to play now. It's called a tag. So bye, everyone. Every show that we finish up, I'm going to play this thing so you can still hear us. But you see that screen that says bye, everyone, and that's how you can follow us. That's how you can find us. Have a great day. Peace out. Bye-bye.